An American man once considered renting an old house in the historic Sabun Quran, or soapmakers neighborhood of Slemani, South Kurdistan. One day, he visited the alley where the house was, accompanied by a local friend, a man who was a Peshmerga officer and a member of an important family in the city. While admiring the old Bardi Malkandi stonework of the property and commenting on the work needed to fix it up, they noticed that they were being watched by someone. Across the street, up on the balcony, sat an elderly Kurdish grandmother, calmly observing the two men. "My son," the older woman called down to the soldier, "what is your interest in that house?" "Peace be to you, dear mother," the officer responded. "We would like to rent this house. If it's not any trouble, can you tell us about it?" "May I be a sacrifice for you, my dear one," the older woman responded, proceeding to share helpful history about the house and the previous residents. The American observed the ensuing conversation between the important soldier and the neighborhood woman with surprise. These two people, only a few minutes ago, were complete strangers. Yet here they were, speaking to one another as if they were a grandmother speaking to her beloved grandson. This soldier was a strong and important man. He had more power, more money, and more connections than this elderly woman did. Yet in that interaction, he was as gentle and respectful as if he were speaking to the mother of a king. Anything and everything that the grandmother said in this conversation, the soldier humbly agreed with, deferring to her in every possible way. He only refused her when she invited him and the American to come up and let her serve them lunch. And that was only possible through several lengthy and very polite excuses. What was it, the American wondered, that produced this kind of interaction between the soldier and this neighborhood grandmother? Was there something in the local customs or worldview that could explain this dramatic reversal of position? Why should a soldier humble himself and show so much honor to a normal old woman sitting on a balcony? In fact, what the American had witnessed was something foundational, something at the very core of Kurdish culture: respect, and respect for the elderly in particular. Yes, to understand anything at all about Kurdish culture, one must understand the central role of respect. This value of Kurdish culture not only turns powerful soldiers into gentle sons, but shapes every single social interaction. Yes, to understand Kurdish culture, there is no better place to begin than the all-important topic of respect. Welcome to Rushmal, the Kurdish Culture Podcast. Our goal in this podcast is to explore, understand, and share Kurdish culture for the benefit of Kurds and non-Kurds alike. In each episode, we focus on a different aspect of Kurdish culture and how it affects everyday life. Like every culture, Kurdish culture is diverse and always changing. Our hope is to explore both the historic traditions and modern variations, highlighting the opportunities and acknowledging the challenges. With deep respect and admiration, we invite others to join us as we continue to learn more. So, come on into the Rushmal, the black tent where countless generations of Kurds have lived. Let us serve you a hot cup of sweet Kurdish chai and enjoy the conversation.
Friends, I want to do some introductions. We have 3 people sitting at this table. Let's start with our local companion and guide.
Thank you so much, Stephen. My name is Serhad Hadi, and I'm a lecturer at Salahuddin University, and one of my master's degree is in Kurdish studies. I've been teaching Sorani Kurdish for several years, and I'm from Erbil. I think every Kurd, including me, first learned about respect from our grandparents. That's where I was introduced to it. I see respect as one of the deepest roots of our culture. It's connected to many other parts of Kurdish life. To understand respect in Kurdish culture, you'll understand many other things about our life in Kurdistan.
All right, well, my name is Andrew Wilkinson, known more locally as Mamusta Andi. I have been a teacher and a researcher and a writer based out of the Kurdistan region for about 9 years now. And so I'm very excited for this podcast to be beginning, and today specifically to be talking about respect in Kurdish culture. When I was brand new in Kurdistan, I remember being so amazed and struck by how very respectful everyday interactions were, even on the street in the bazaar. And to this day, I'm still really amazed at how respect seems to shape so much about Kurdish society and culture.
My name is Stephen Riley, and I have lived in Kurdistan for now 5 years with my family. And, I'm just one of those silly Americans who really is stumbling my way through Kurdistan most days. I come from a culture where respect is all about comfortability and, you call your boss by their first name. And the goal is to try to just level the playing field and everyone be equals. So my introduction to Kurdish culture as it relates to respect was really a shock to my system, and it's been a real process of rewiring my brain to understand some of the things we're going to be talking about today. Having said that, I want to think through maybe a good definition of when we say respect in Kurdish culture. What exactly are we talking about here, you guys?
Kurdish culture, when we think about respect, I mean, the first thing that comes to our mind is age, hierarchy. Age is deeply respected in our Kurdish culture. Elderly family members hold positions of honor and authority,
Mm.
and people often seek their wisdom when making important decisions. And let me give you an example. For instance, when an older person enters a room, younger people typically stand up
Mm-hmm.
and as a sign of respect,
Yeah.
and their opinions carry a lot of weight in family matters. And here's the thing, this respect isn't just for your own family, it actually extends to all elderly people in the community and even in different nations.
Yeah, Mamos, and I have a question for you. As we think about what Sarah had just said, how have you seen this play out, and what are some of the distinctions that you would say you've noticed between maybe Western ways of understanding respect and then what you've found in your time here in Kurdistan?
Right. Well, I think Kurdish culture and many Eastern cultures, they really value differences in hierarchy and status, and they really view those things as important and even beautiful in some ways. And there's a special sensitivity to anyone who might be ahead of you in terms of age or authority or experience or position. And Kurdish culture is very, very careful and very sensitive to honor all of those differences in status
Yeah.
compared to Western culture. Western culture, I want to show respect by demonstrating that I believe that you are my equal, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you believe that I am your equal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're sort of in this dance in the West to always demonstrate, I know that you know that I know that I'm not better than you.
Yeah.
We're all on the same level here.
Uh-huh.
Well, the dance in Kurdish culture is you're sort of competing to demonstrate, I believe you are higher than I am. And maybe the other person is trying to show, no, I believe you are higher than I am. And so again, both cultures value respect deeply.
Yeah.
The way that it's shown here is different. And I think it is in some ways more central.
Yeah, what almost Andy said,
Yeah.
that's right. Even small age differences matter in Kurdish culture. I mean, if someone is older than you, even by just a few months, you show them respect. Let me give you an example. When getting into a car, the older person sits in the front seats. It's not negotiable. Say you are on a public bus and an elderly man or woman boards, you immediately offer them your seat.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, people don't do this because they are forced to. It's seen as a moral duty and a matter of personal honor. But it goes beyond just physical, gesture. You see, elder people speak first in conversations, and their advice is taken very, very seriously. And disagreeing with them publicly is considered disrespectful. It's really a way of acknowledging their life experience and the wisdom they've gained over the years. So, as Mamos Andy said, it's repetitive. I'm seeing you higher than me. Sometimes, when I get into a car, one of my cousins said, "Oh no, sir, you are older than me." But I'm just older than him by 1 month or 2 months.
Uh-huh.
But it does matter in our culture.
Yeah.
What about if you see an elder man, say for example, 70 years old? How can you deal with them? It's really important.
Sarah, had you mentioned earlier that with your grandparents, you began to learn this as a child. Are there any memories you have, or maybe your friends have had that you could share that of just how your family or the culture around you, the society around you, helped you to understand some of these expectations about respect for the elderly or people with a certain status?
Yeah, for example, when my grandparents, let's say especially my grandfather, came home for lunch or for dinner, and he's going to sit at the top of the room.
When you say the top of the room, can you just define what that means? The space furthest from the door?
It can be different depending on the room, but often it's the seat that's farthest away from the door, right?
Yeah.
Or the most comfortable seat.
The problem is we didn't have, let's say, sofas at that time or chairs, things like that. We sat down on the floor. So the grandparents should far away from the door and just sit there. And also, we had to serve them in the first plate and the first tea to them. And also, when he is demand or he is asking something, there is no way to say no. And it's the first time we've learned about respect, and especially related to age, because he is our grandfather and she's, our grandmother, and we have to show respect to them by obeying them. It's really important for us.
Yeah. So, but dining, the experience of dining and where people sat
Yes.
and who got served first, that was all very instructive to you, even as you were a kid, without anyone saying, we're doing this for grandpa first because he's the oldest. It was just, you just saw it and you learned.
Yeah, that's right.
That's one of the things that's really interesting about Kurdish culture. It's what some scholars have called a high context culture, which means that there's more specific rules for different settings related to topics like respect. And so in a dining situation, for example, there would be other cultures where there's not as many rules about how to show respect in that setting. But in Kurdish culture, there are guidelines or rules for eating that have to do with respect, even for driving somewhere, like Mamusta Sarhad was saying, for entering a door, who goes first through the door, for body language. There are all of these rules or guidelines for all kinds of situations. I think one of the most practical things foreigners could do to learn to navigate Kurdish culture well would be to ask their Kurdish friends about a specific setting and say, how can I act respectfully in this setting? I'm going to a government office today. Tell me, how can I go in and out of that government office in a way that communicates respect? Because Kurds will have learned all of the rules naturally about how to navigate that respectfully, but they're not always super clear to us foreigners. My neighbors invited me for tea. How can I accept that invitation and visit them in a way that shows respect? And to begin to learn practically how to show the respect that we feel in these different settings, these different contexts.
No, that's so helpful. One of the things that came out of your guys' research call that was interesting to me was in regard to, some of you mentioned government offices, and I'm thankful I've never made a mistake in a government office.
Right.
But it was interesting to think through things like eye contact. I mean, just last night telling my son, look at me in the eye, to make sure that that he is giving me the respect that I deserve or that I'm expecting. And it was interesting to think here in the research call how eye contact is viewed differently in this culture.
Yeah, that's right. Even let's say, for example, eye contact is really matter because, for example, when you look at his or her eyes directly, it's kind of shamefulness for you because it means it's a sign of disrespectful. So we have a phrase in Sorani, we say "Chao Qaim." So it means, for example, you don't have any respect and you don't care what I'm saying. You know, you are in a position that I have to give you advice and you are supposed to not, look at me directly. So, your eye contact, your body language, your body movement is really important in those kind of situations.
I remember one example of how body language was opposite in Kurdish culture from my American culture. When I was a new teacher in Slemani, my students told me that a very respectful way for students to sit would be with their arms crossed. As they sit in the classroom, they should cross their arms as they look at their teacher, and that communicates respect. When in American culture, a student sitting with his arms crossed and looking at his teacher means, I don't care what you think. I'm not listening to you. I know better than you. And so I had to learn when I came into the classroom and all of my students were sitting with their arms crossed. That was a posture of respect, not a posture of disrespect. Is the complete opposite body language from what I had grown up with.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so here's one of the things that I think is not necessarily unique to Kurdish culture, but it's kind of the moment that we're in globally. as we see, these cities like Erbil and Sulaymaniyah kind of sucking up a lot of the populations from the surrounding villages. And I'm kind of curious, how do we see the culture shifting in this regard as we think about I want to think first just about geographic movement of people to the cities and kind of urbanization and how that's impacted what we've been discussing here. And then in a minute, I want to move on to kind of the digital age, but let's just start there.
While these traditional values remain strong, Kurdish society, like many others around the world, is experiencing generational change.
Hmm.
And younger Kurds, particularly in urban areas or in diasporic communities, often find themselves moving between traditional and respectful customs and more modern. And honestly, there is a truth we need to acknowledge here. The deeper you go into rural areas, especially the mountains
Hmm.
regions, the stronger these traditions become. And because Kurds are fundamentally a mountainous nation, in those remote mountain villages, you'll see these values practiced in their most traditional form. Now it's because of due to the globalization and having metropolitan cities like
Hmm.
Erbil, Amed, Urumia. It's not so easy. To keep those kind of cultural aspects in its original form. But we still, even in the cities, we still keep the Kurdish respections. And even let me tell you something. When you talk about respect, we have to talk about hospitality. It comes from the respect. Even in some small towns in southern Kurdistan, you can't see hotels.
Hmm. Yeah, you said you can't see hotels. They're not there.
No, there is not. There is not there because they see a kind of disrespectful for their visitors. And even, they do that with the Kurds and non-Kurds. Let's say, for example, we have a city here called Kalazze, and some other cities,
Yeah.
they don't have hotels.
Koya as well. No,
Koya as
no
well,
hotel.
yeah.
So
Be-
as a foreigner, if I go into that city and I see there's not a hotel, I shouldn't perceive that as, oh, they don't want me to stay the night here. The expectation is they would view this as inappropriate for me to get a hotel and I should be staying in someone's house. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, for example, when they realize that you are a foreigner, you are not belonging to this area, then everyone are competitive. Everyone
It
are
becomes a competition.
the competition. Just to take you back to their home, even if they don't know the language, they can show you. The respect by their hospitality.
Yeah, so having a hotel in your traditional Kurdish city would be viewed as a form of disrespect to visitors
Mm,
traditionally. Because the
Yeah.
more respectful thing to do for a guest is to have them stay in your home. It's so interesting. We would view that as inconvenient, right? It's inconvenient. There's no hotel, but it's not an issue of convenience or inconvenience. It really is connected to this value of respect. I wonder in the cities. So it seems like much of Kurdish respect is related to the ability to locate someone socially. So in the rural areas, in the villages, it's more easy to find out what tribe is that person from? How are they related to me? What is their village? What is their area? And then to correctly orient yourself to them in terms of respect,
hmm.
to place them socially. In the cities, I think that's a lot harder to do.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Y-
that's right.
And so you have more people kind of ignoring each other. And
Interesting.
in the cities, just because it's harder to place people socially, and so
Hmm.
I do think, well, driving would be a great example of this. You don't see the same kind of respectful interactions on the road that you would see even, let's say, in shops or places where people are interacting face to face.
Yeah.
Because you're removing even more opportunities to place someone socially, to recognize them as a human, one, but also then as a human who's a part of my society, who I'm somehow connected to. And so I think that cities are kind of chipping away at some of that respect just because of the number of people
Hmm.
and the difficulty of finding out, okay, where is this person located socially?
Mm.
And so what is the appropriate kind of respect I should be giving them? Although one of our participants in our research call wanted us to make sure to say that respect in Kurdish culture is not just about position and status. There's also a strong belief in respect for another person, no matter who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a sense of respect for someone just because they're a human being, I think,
Okay.
in Kurdish culture.
Yeah, and it extends to even, I mean, for deceased person.
For a deceased person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in Kurdish culture, when someone speaks badly about the deceased person, others will actually ask or demand that the discussion be stopped because it's considered deeply disrespectful toward. It's like even they are again, their dignity must still be protected among us.
Interesting.
Yeah, even breaking the graveyards.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very, very sensitive in Kurdish culture.
Yeah.
Even in recent days, an ISIS fighter in Rojava, in
Okay.
western Kurdistan,
Mm-hmm.
broke the graves of several Kurdish martyrs in Hasaka.
Okay.
It's a Kurdish city in western Kurdistan.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, the reaction to this was intense. These are crimes are an act of disrespect, not only from the Kurdish point of view, but also from a basic humanitarian perspective. And let's say 2 months ago, a Kurdish village in Koya,
Mm-hmm.
it's a Christian village called Harmota,
Mm-hmm.
and broke the Christian graveyards.
Yeah.
So
It was a big story.
yeah, it became a big story. And one of the mullah, I mean, from
Uh-huh.
this village, I mean, went for the graveyard and with a bunch of flower just to see respect for the heartbroken Christians in this
Mm-hmm.
village.
There's another aspect, I think, of who you show respect to. So we've talked about status and position. We've talked about basic respect just for other humans
Uh-huh.
who have the human dignity. Maybe this is less emphasized in Eastern cultures, in Kurdish culture, but it's still here, and that would be earned respect.
Yeah, I
So,
wanted to think about that. Can you say,
Mhm.
yeah, can you take us there, Andrew?
Well, so in a traditional Kurdish culture, when people would trace their father line, the line of their male ancestors back to someone, it often goes back to someone who
Mm-hmm.
stands out because they achieved something important. They were a really famous, maybe leader
Mm-hmm.
or poet or soldier,
Yeah.
and they stood out. They did something unique and earned a lot of respect for their name.
Mm-hmm.
So that now, like Kurdish people will, that family will trace themselves back to that leader.
Hmm.
And so there is a way, yes, you're given respect based on your name, where your tribe, your family, but there are avenues. It might be a little more challenging than in some cultures, but there are ways to also earn respect. If someone really excels, if someone really shows themselves to be a respectful person, they achieve something very significant.
Mm-hmm.
So, we think in America, America is the place where, it doesn't matter who your parents are. What matters is just what you do, who you are. That's sort of the narrative about our culture.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's a little different here, I feel like, in Kurdistan, where it really matters who your parents are. That's very important here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some room for that. It still matters what you do too, right? How you live, whether or not you earn respect through your daily conduct. Honestly, Sarah, am I getting this right? How would you interact with what I'm saying here about earned respect versus respect you receive because of your
Yeah, that's really important in our culture. If you do something disrespectful, it doesn't just affect your reputation, it affects your family honor too as well.
Mm,
Because that's why, for example, what is your father, what's your grandfather, your ancestors matters. And also your attitude is matter as well for their name as well. And as Mamusa Andrew said, even we have a lot of respect for the martyred families.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we have a lot of discounts from the government. I mean, they can study for free, and it's just as a sign of respect for those families. It's just an act of showing the respect, let's say, in a
mhm.
broader sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do want to double click on what Andrew just said, but I want to think about it carefully. What about someone who you've received the respect? You mentioned ancestral respect
Yeah.
because of who your father or grandfather was. What if you receive the status or the position because of that, who your father was, but actually you didn't earn it in the way that we would think of it in the West?
Mhm.
You earned the position or the title. because you worked really hard and you proved that you were the best for this job.
Yeah.
But instead, you've inherited it as a result of who your father is. How does the broader culture receive you in that role?
So in some ways, I mean, yeah, I mean, we can show a lot of respect for what your, let's say, ancestors, I mean, do or does, I mean, for the community, for the nation. But I mean, the people have a lot of respect for them because of what they've done for Kurdish nation. So it extends, I mean, to their grandkids and grandchildren. In some ways, it could be one of the side effects of, well, let's say, I mean, getting respect from your ancestors. It's judged and it's fair, I mean, to work very hard, I mean, to get what you are deserved for.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder if the more collective a culture is, the more comfortable they are with that received respect, that inherited respect that comes from your family, and the more individualistic a culture becomes, the more they insist you need to earn that respect yourself. There's no culture in the world that's totally individualistic or totally collective. Kurdish culture is in this interesting transition from being a very strongly, I think, collective culture, and more forms of individualism are being introduced in these decades. And so I'm starting to hear some complaining about some of the inherited positions.
Okay.
Right. And so, oh, that guy, he just got that job because his uncle is the mudir. His uncle, he didn't earn it. But
Yeah.
that complaining, I wonder if that's a sort of a sign of individualism coming into the culture.
Like a cultural shift that's happening.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
Just a theory. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's right.
Sarahad, do you have a thought?
We have another thing now, Mr. Stephen, language and communication related to respect. Of course, our communication with others is through language, right? And it's the first and most effective channel for showing both communication and respect. And let me tell you, the use of proper titles in Kurdish culture, prefixes, and I mean occupational names before people's name is really important in Kurdish culture. Here's the thing, in Kurdish society, it's actually considered inappropriate to call an adult by just their first name. I mean, you wouldn't just say Ahmed to an older person. That would come across as disrespectful. Instead, we use kinship terms or honorific titles to show respect.
Okay, you said kinship terms or honorific titles. Can you give me some
Yeah,
examples of what you
let
mean
me
here?
give some examples for that. For instance, we say ma'am and khal, which both means uncle in English. However, ma'am literally means father's brother and khal is mother's brother. In addition to their real uncles, young people also use these two terms for people older than themselves. And typically anyone in their 50s and older as a sign of respect. And if someone is an elderly man in the 70s and older, we call them Mam Haji. That's a particularly respected title, and younger men are often referred to as Kak, like Kak Stephen, Kak Serhat, Kak Andrew. And professional titles like Mamusa means teacher in English, or doctor are also widely used in Kurdish culture. So basically, everyone has a title based on their age, their relationship to you, or their profession. And it's really important, I mean, to say, for example, when you see a Kurdish man here, I mean, just try to get, let's say, his age, let's say, guess. If he is in the 50s, I mean, try to say Mam or Khal. And if you just say, I mean, their first name, I mean, without any professions, titles, positions, kinship titles. As I said, because kinship title, it extends to for other people outside of your family. So it's really important to say Mam or Khal. So, I mean, let's say, for example, among the Western people, when they use, I mean, their first name, the sign of friendship, but in Kurdish culture, it could be a kind of disrespectful. And yeah, I mean, we can we can use, I mean, our first name is, I mean, among the friends, but it's, a serious issue in Kurdish culture.
Yeah.
And even sometimes we can give 2 or 3 positions before, I mean, someone's name, according to his positions. For example, Let's say for a mullah, we can say Mamosta Mullah, and then, I mean, his real name. Or maybe for a pastor,
Mm.
a Mamosta Kasha, and things like that. And even for some, doctor, some lecturer universities. So, I mean, having a position or a profession titles, it's matters a lot in Kurdish culture.
So titles matter a lot in Kurdish culture.
I think this is one of the areas where foreigners often make a lot of mistakes in communicating respect or disrespect in this culture is just by not using titles. And it's one of the easiest ways to show respect.
Yeah, that's right.
And these are some very helpful categories. So if someone is around my generation, a little bit older than me, right, then we can call them older brother, kak,
Kak, yeah.
right? Or if it's a woman, we could call them older sister,
Khan.
khan.
Yeah.
But then if they're sort of a generation ahead of me, I can call them uncle, right? Mom or khal.
Yeah.
And then if they're even older than that, maybe my grandfather's generation, you were saying maybe Mam Haji
Mam Haji, yeah.
would be even more respectful. So that's interesting. So not calling someone of my father's generation kak, older brother,
Yeah.
but giving him a title appropriate, more like uncle,
Mm-hmm.
to recognize that age difference. That's new information for me, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Mamos Andy, sometimes, for example, when you are in the same age and you say mom, let's say, for example, if I
Mm,
tell you mom and true, and while we are at the same age, it's a kind of a funny, it's kind of, funniness.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we say, oh, why? I'm not enough old,
I had some,
I'm younger.
I had some guys telling me last night. They were telling me about the white hair that's coming in my beard and my goatee, and they said if you're not careful soon, men of our generation are going to start calling you uncle.
Okay.
And I said it's okay. I don't mind. You can call me uncle.
I mean, I have to say something about this one. We have a symbol related to Kurdish respect, which is called Wishspi or white bearded.
White bearded.
Yeah. So in Kurdish culture, I mean, when someone's hair turned into white color,
Yeah.
it could be a beard or a hair, any hair from
Yeah.
your body. It's a sign of age and of experience. It's a profound and a powerful term in Kurdish culture. White bearded, or let's say wispy, they have a big role to reconcile, let's say, two different parties or two different families. They can make peace in Kurdish culture. So,
Mhm.
and also, I mean, their voice, their advice, and their, let's say, efforts are not easy to reject, and you have to show respect. Why? Because they have, white hair. As they became a white beard in the community. So, if we choose one of the sign or one of the mark or a symbol for Kurdish respect, we can say Wishspi. So maybe,
Should I
you know,
dye my hair white then?
yeah, yeah. So, but nowadays everything is changed
Yeah.
because you can have white beard in your 20s, in your, let's say, in your 30s, but it's just a sign of age and
Mhm.
experience that someone passed through generations and years. They earned a lot of wisdom, so they have a big role in Kurdish culture. They can make peace very
Yeah.
easily.
They can
Even,
make peace very easily.
yeah.
What do you mean by that?
When I say very easily, everyone who belongs to Kurdish society, they know it's not right to be disrespectful for their judgment, for their judge. Okay?
Okay. It's not, so it would not be appropriate to be disrespectful to
Yes.
someone with white hair,
Yes.
and so you leave them alone.
Yeah.
Let there be peace.
Yes.
I see.
So you have to accept it.
Well, they serve as the mediator. They serve as the mediator, the judge. They're able to make peace easily because people respect their judgment.
Because they've been through generations of
Yeah.
stuff. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're able to bring these families together who at conflict, and the families come to them and they say, "Here's our problem. Give us your judgment." And then they're supposed to respect their judgment when he says, "You're wrong," or "You're wrong," or "You're half wrong," and they're a little bit wrong too. And here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting aspect of the culture.
It's so
Yeah.
fascinating.
But
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. You can be old and not having a beard. and you still are, I mean, a white bearded. I mean,
Nice,
so I mean,
nice white beard.
yeah, I mean, it comes from, the age. I mean, the
Yeah,
age
yeah.
hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so helpful.
Yeah.
Hey, you said a minute ago, and we've already hit a bit on urbanization and the changes of the modern moment, but just want to think through one of the areas. Now, I'm not. I'll be fully transparent here. I'm not the most literate when it comes to the Kurdish language, but helpfully, social media will translate things if I click the button for me, so I can still read the Kurdish comments on social media posts. And I have to ask, like, what's happening with respect on in the virtual age in Kurdish culture? Because some of the stuff I see online is,
Comments.
Yeah,
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 comments.
comments.
You know, uh, uh, I'm really sad for that. For example, when I read the comments, I can see, sometimes I clicked on their profile, I mean, just to see their picture, I mean, to detect, I mean, their age. When I see, I mean, those who are, on the age of my father or my uncles,
hmm
when they are in the 50s, 60s, I can see they can't write, bad comments. And they even they don't want, I mean, to show disrespectful, I mean, for the people.
uh-huh.
But the sad story is I can see the young generation, they can be very disrespectful in the comments,
hmm
while when you go to the society, I mean, you can when you go out from the social medias platforms, you can see that it's different. It's just a phenomena. Why
hmm
it exists in the comments? Do they think that they are not being
hmm
seen?
Right.
I mean, in the reality, I don't know why, but it's one of the things that came up with the social media,
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
There's a dehumanizing effect that I think we're seeing in every culture,
Yeah.
where when you're in an online space, it's harder to feel like that other person is an actual human who is worthy of dignity and respectful interaction. It's not dissimilar to what we see on the roads, actually. Why road rage is so common is because that you're in a car, you're separated by glass and metal and plastic from this other person in their car, and it's harder to feel like they're a person. And
hmm
so the way we treat each other in our cars or on social media is very different from even if you're just face to face,
Yeah.
Yeah,
in a line somewhere. uh, there's more, we feel more the relational obligations. And those settings they make us a little bit numb to those relational
yeah,
obligations, I think.
that's right.
And that's why you could see something like that so drastically different in Kurdish culture.
hmm
The comment section can be crazy, but in the bazaar, they wouldn't be talking to each
Yeah,
other
that's
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
So it's a phenomena. I mean, it should let's say the psychologists and the
Mhm.
sociologists, I mean, should do a lot of research about that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I think Andrew's right. It's not just a here problem.
Yeah, it's a global
It's a global
problem. Yeah,
problem,
it's a
right?
global
Yeah.
problem.
It's like, Dad, what did you just post? Where people just can't believe it. Yeah.
You're right.
Are there any challenges or disadvantages that you've seen to this aspect of Kurdish culture?
Yes, I can say something, as a witness. For example, since, I mean, they have a lot of power to be respected by others. Let's say, for example, in some areas, let's say the parents and the grandparents can make, the last decision for their, the destiny of their daughters and sons in marriage process. It's becoming less common nowadays, and the parents and grandparents understand their kids and their children. I mean, and they have respect for their opinions.
Uh-huh.
They want, I mean, to get married with someone. And yeah, I mean, for example, they said, okay, oh, hey, dad, hey, mom, since you like and you want, I mean, you want me, I mean, to marry with this one because you like it, and I can do that. I mean, but then a lot of problem will come out, I mean, for this
hmm
family. And it's one of the, side effect that comes from, our passionate for, I mean, showing respect for others, especially for our family
hmm
members, let's say maybe the head of the family's
Yeah.
parents. But nowadays, I can see, I mean, especially in the cities, that the parents can let their children to make their own decision.
But just to recap then what you just said is that one of the challenges historically is that perhaps out of a duty to show respect to your parents and grandparents, the next generation did not necessarily have as much of a say in who they got to marry.
Yeah.
But you're saying that there's been you're even seeing a cultural shift now where the
Yes.
advantage is falling to the younger
Yeah,
generation.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Andrew, any thoughts on that question that I posed?
I've had some Kurdish friends share with me a related issue, which is that you're not allowed to say no to an authority
Mm,
figure. And sometimes it's actually impossible. You cannot do what they're asking, or maybe you
mhm,
shouldn't do what they're asking, but you're not allowed to say no because that would be disrespectful. And so I think sometimes younger Kurds can feel trapped. I have to
mhm,
respect. I have to respect this person in authority, but to respect them, I have to tell them something I'm not able to do
mhm.
or shouldn't do. And I think that can be a difficult position to be in. That is one of the challenges that a high respect culture introduces.
Yeah, that's really helpful to think through. Sir, had any other thoughts on this?
I totally agree with Mama Sandro. It's a hard position sometimes, you don't want, wholeheartedly. But just in order to show your respect, and to be loyal and to be faithful for your parents, you have to show respect and do something that you don't want, from your
Mm,
heart. Yeah, as Mama Sandro said, they are not allowed, to say no, because no is kind of very disrespectful to them.
mhm,
So, in this case, you have to do something that you don't want. But as I said, nowadays, the parents will let their kids, to do something that they want. We are in shifting time, and
yeah,
we can be witness that, something, is shifting.
uh-huh. Yeah, Sarah, you mentioned, that things are shifting, but even in the midst of all of that, one of the things that's been consistent throughout this conversation is the way that age and the passing of time plays into all of these aspects of respect. So for you personally, as you have passed through this life, now you're a married man
Yeah.
with two beautiful children. And as I think about now your interaction, so we're going back to your grandparents and sitting in the high seat, eating dinner, and your father. What is your interaction like with your family now?
Yeah, since I'm the only boy in the family and I am supposed to live with my parents, and I do that wholeheartedly. And sometimes, I can educate and teach my kids that look at that, you have to show respect to me and you have to be obey me because look at me. Hadi is my father, Baba Hadi is my father, and I have to do what he asks me. And so in this case, you are supposed to just look at, the relation between me and my father.
So now you're
Yeah,
saying I have you're telling Ahmed your son
yeah,
I have to do what Baba Hadi tells me.
yeah.
So even now your father still can tell you what to do.
Yes. For example, when I have a project or an opinion, even when I have a problem, I can go to my father and I said, okay, hey, father, I have this problem and I have this project. What's your opinion? Sometimes he says, sir, because we are just like a friend, and he's going to tell me his opinion about the thing that I proposed to him.
Mhm,
And I really take care of his opinions. And when Ahmed and Urfa show my attitude or my behavior to with my parents, and sometimes I said, okay, look at that. This is she is my mother, and you have to respect your mother because look at that. I'm your father, but I have a deep respect to my mother. If you want, to be loved by me, please show respect to your mom. So in this way, so we are in a family that different generations are living
mhm.
together, and
Yeah,
we can transfer, the values to one another.
yeah, okay. All right, Mamosta Sarahad, Mamosta Andrew, what are some practical tips as we think about respect, ways that we should walk this out carefully and things we should be mindful of, especially those maybe who didn't grow up in this culture?
I once asked a Kurdish friend why Kurdish people say goodbye so many times on the phone when they're hanging up. It's not just one goodbye. It's "Khwabis khwatlakal, khwabis khwatlakal," over and over again,
Mhm,
different forms of goodbye. And he said it's very important in our culture that the other person knows we always have time for them.
mhm.
we have so much time for the other person. They are much more important to us than our schedules or our to-do lists or our calendar. And so I took from that one of the important and practical principles for showing respect in Kurdish culture is to be careful to show in my interactions I have lots of time for this person, and to not rush. That's one very practical way that I found is
Say, for example, as Mausandru said, we have, a lot of time for our guests. I mean, we pretend to that, and that's why, I mean, we're repeating goodbye, Hafiz, Hafiz. And even when we welcoming our guest, we say, okay, Ya kho bakhair be, bakhair be, bakhair be, several times, just to say that I have enough time and I'm really happy that you are here. And the other thing is, it's really important for people when a Kurdish house invited you, you have to accept it. In some ways, refusing or rejecting the invitation is a kind of shameful for you. And also, for example, when you are in a Kurdish house and during eating, when you are full and then you said, I'm done, it's really, really important for the host to ask you start again and eat more. Because as we said, in Kurdish culture, the portion of the food is really important because it should remain a lot on the table. When the host asks the guest just to eat more, it's just, an optional. It's optional, and you have, I mean, totally right to not eat again. But it's really important for foreigners to know that's coming from their deep, hospitable mindset.
Yeah, hospitality. We should think about that in an upcoming episode.
Yeah.
A couple other practical things that often need to change when foreigners move to Kurdistan is we often need to dress a little more formally than we might in our home cultures. Especially Americans, we tend to dress very casually, and in Kurdish culture, it's more respectable. The way you dress really reflects on your respect for yourself and for others in a way that I think used to be the case, maybe more the case in Western culture, but is not so much anymore. So just dressing a little more business like, a little more formally is helpful for showing respect on a practical level, as well as greetings. I think Kurdish culture is highly verbal, and the way that you make sure to greet everyone and to greet them verbally and confidently and warmly is very important. So I could walk into a room full of my American friends. I don't have to say anything. I could just walk into that circle. I can just make a little nod with my chin.
Yeah.
And, someone makes eye contact and he nods back at me, and that means we've greeted each other acceptably. That's really rude in Kurdish culture.
That's right.
It's so disrespectful. So here, you want to be verbal and warm and confident, and you want to make sure that you greet people, and that's an important practical way to show respect. So
That's so helpful.
And yeah, I mean, what Malasandru said, I mean, I can say that in those situations when you greeting someone in a way, you have to, let's say, generalize your greeting to every single person in the room. Let's say, for example, when you are making a shake hand with someone, you have to do that with all the people in the room.
Yeah.
When you kiss their cheeks, you have to do that as well. And the other thing is, in Kurdish culture, women and men are not, shaking hands to one another. Generally, you can see that. For example, maybe a man comes to a room and it's mixed with Kurdish people and American people, and it's okay to not shaking hand with the woman.
Sarahad, what should I do instead? Whenever I'm going down the line shaking hands, I get to the woman. What do I do?
That's a good question. You can move. I mean, your gesture is important. I mean, just you can putting your hand on your chest and things like that.
Yeah.
In some ways, it could be nicer than shaking in hands. It means, I'm really apologize because you are a woman, and culturally or religiously, I'm not supposed to do that, and I'm really sorry for that. But I can do something better for you. I can put my hand on my chest and other kind of, showing your respect. I mean, for this lady in the room.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Andrew, Any other ways that you can think of that would be helpful?
Maybe one last final thing that we've learned is that responding quickly to people's phone calls and messages is another way to show
Mm-hmm.
respect. And a way people can feel disrespected if we delay too long. So in an American face-to-face meeting, if I'm in a meeting, it's very rude for me to pick up my phone if someone else calls me. But here
Yeah.
in Kurdistan, it's actually rude for me not to pick up my phone
Mm-hmm.
in many situations.
Yeah.
Um, it's almost like someone has come to my door and I'm refusing to answer the door.
Mm-hmm.
That's how some of my Kurdish friends feel if I don't pick up their call. So I try as soon as possible, call them back and tell them, I'm so sorry I missed your call. I was in a meeting or I didn't have my phone on me. But that's another very practical way to show respect and
Yeah.
avoid accidentally disrespecting people.
Yeah.
Addition to that,
Yeah.
Imam Hafsa Steven, thank you so much, Imam Hafsa Andrew. Addition to that, in Kurdish society, at least, I'm talking about that based on what I've experienced in my city. We call each other more than, texting to one another.
Mhm.
For example, when we want, to try to get contact with someone, we prefer to call him, not to text him.
Uh-huh.
That's why sometimes when an American, or a foreigner, a Western people texted us, we prefer to call him. It's a kind of respect, and it's a kind of that you are enough time just to call. And as Maus Andrew said, we are a verbal nation.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, we can generalize and adapt in different situations, even when we say, okay, sometimes, a question will be answered in just yes and no, but we need to call them.
Right.
That's really important.
And that's actually really helpful because, as an American here, I think whenever I'm sitting in a meeting, if someone picks up a phone while we're in the middle of a meeting, I receive that one way. But I'm not viewing it through the same lens that we're talking about here. And what an interesting thing, because as we talked about earlier in the episode, the way that the changing world is changing the culture.
Yeah.
You think about the smartphones in the pocket. This is a relatively new cultural challenge. Mm-hmm. Mr. Andy, do we have any Kurdish proverbs that you'd like to share today?
Well, there's a new one that Mama Sasser had shared with me.
Oh,
I believe it was, respect a good man and he will be humble. Respect a bad man and he will be worse.
Sirhat, can you say that for us in Kurdish?
So, Stephen, because it's a poem, I have to read it.
Ooh, okay. Let's close this inaugural episode of Rushmore with this poem. Can you read the poem?
Okay. This proverb, it comes from a poem. It's written by a great poet in Kurdish. He said, Rasan rezid girt sharmazar abe, balam na rasan tabe har abe.
Thank you so much, Sirhat.
No, it's my pleasure. And unfortunately, I think, according to my knowledge, this book hasn't been translated into English. That's written and collected by Pyramid, which is a great poet in southern Kurdistan.
Well, and what an interesting thought, too, that respect can also be a way of exposing someone's character, right? Respect a good man, and what will come out of him is humility. Respect a bad man, and what will come out of him is even worse behavior than he's already shown.
That's right.
And recognize there's some wisdom there in this old Kurdish proverb showing some respect can do many things. One of the things it can do is show what's inside of someone, which is fascinating.
Wait, that's right.
That's what we have time for today, folks. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next time with an episode on hospitality and Kurdish culture.
Thanks for listening to Rushmall, the Kurdish Culture Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, then be sure to share it with others and to subscribe for more content exploring Kurdish culture.